There comes a time when you must stop dancing around dysfunction and call it what it is. You've been walking on emotional eggshells, carrying wounds that didn't belong to you, just to keep peace with someone who thrives in chaos. But today is about reclaiming your power. It's about drawing the line between love and manipulation, between endurance and wisdom, because healing doesn't start when they change. It begins when you do. You're not crazy, you're just waking up. And once you see the game for what it is, you stop playing it. This is the moment clarity meets courage. Recognizing manipulation without internalizing blame is one of the most powerful breakthroughs a person can experience, especially when dealing with a narcissist. Manipulation is subtle. It doesn't always come with shouting or threats. Sometimes it wears the mask of concern, of charm, even of love. A narcissist will twist your words, shift your emotions, and invert the truth so cleverly that you begin to question your own reality. You may find yourself saying sorry just to keep the peace, even when you did nothing wrong. You may feel like you're walking through life on a tightrope, trying not to trigger their next outburst or cold silence. Over time, this psychological erosion becomes the soil where self-doubt takes root, and slowly, silently, it begins to grow. What makes narcissistic manipulation so dangerous is not just the act itself, but the way it makes you feel responsible for it. You start to believe that if you had just said it better, done it differently, kept quiet, or loved them harder, things wouldn't have turned out this way. But the truth is, no amount of adjusting yourself can satisfy someone who is committed to distorting you. Narcissists don't want peace. They want control. And control of the past. These phrases aren't just dismissive. They're weapons used to disarm your clarity and keep you tangled in confusion. But clarity is your greatest defense. When you begin to track the patterns, not just the moments, you realize it's not about isolated incidents, but about a consistent strategy to disempower you. Refusing to internalize the blame doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for your own growth or flaws. It means you stop carrying what isn't yours. It means that when someone violates your boundaries or disrespects your voice, you don't shrink into shame. You stand in truth. You no longer twist yourself to fit their expectations or question your worth because they withdraw affection or approval. Instead, you begin to trust your inner compass. You learn to pause and ask yourself, is this truly about me? Or is this about their inability to handle accountability? There is strength in detachment, not emotional coldness, but the wisdom to step back and see clearly. The moment you stop taking their reactions as a reflection of your value is the moment you begin to reclaim your freedom. You start to respond instead of react. You stop trying to earn love and begin to recognize that healthy love doesn't require you to betray yourself. You start to see manipulation not as a personal failure, but as a survival tactic used by someone who is afraid of authentic connection. And perhaps the most liberating truth of all is this: you don't need their validation to be whole. You don't need their agreement to heal. What you need is your own permission to stop carrying blame for behavior you didn't cause. Because once you free your mind from the lies they planted, you begin to rise. And when you rise, you don't go back. You walk forward with clarity, with strength, and with a peace that manipulation can no longer touch. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, because your energy is too valuable to be wasted on closed minds and hardened hearts. When someone is determined to misinterpret your words, twist your motives, or question your intentions, no amount of explaining will ever bring peace. You could lay out every detail with grace, every truth with patience, and still they will hear only what supports their narrative. That's not communication, it's control. And the longer you keep trying to prove yourself to someone who doesn't want to understand you, the more you delay your healing, your peace, and your forward motion. Narcissists, especially, thrive in confusion. They will bait you with false accusations, then act wounded when you defend yourself. They'll provoke you into reacting, and when you do, they'll use your emotions as evidence that you're the problem. That cycle becomes addictive. You think if you just say it the right way, at the right time, maybe they'll finally see your heart. Maybe they'll finally acknowledge your pain. But clarity isn't the goal for someone who benefits from chaos. They don't want resolution. They want the upper hand. They want you spinning in circles, exhausting yourself in the hope of being understood, while they sit comfortably in judgment. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your explanation. Some people are not seeking the truth, they're seeking control. They will reduce your deepest truths into petty arguments and make you feel guilty for speaking up. They'll pretend to misunderstand you, so you keep talking, keep explaining, keep probing. But your worth is not up for debate. Your truth doesn't become less valid just because someone refuses to receive it. And your peace doesn't need to be constantly defended to be real. You have to learn when silence is stronger than speech, when peace is more powerful than proving a point. There is wisdom in knowing when to walk away from a conversation that was never meant to bring clarity, but only confusion. Some people are not misinformed. They're committed to staying that way. Not because they can't understand, but because understanding would mean they'd have to take accountability, change their behavior, or release the power they hold over you. That's why they choose ignorance disguised as confusion. It keeps them safe and keeps you spinning, You do not have to keep explaining why you deserve respect, why your boundaries matter, why your pain is real. You don't need to defend your healing, your growth, or your distance. You don't need to shrink your truth to make someone else feel comfortable. The moment you realize that you no longer need validation from people who minimize you is the moment you set yourself free. You stop seeking closure from the same place that caused the wound. You stop expecting someone who broke you to be the one who mends you. It's not arrogance to walk away from someone who refuses to hear you. It's self-respect. It's protection. It's understanding that your time and truth are too sacred to be handled carelessly. You have a right to peace. You have a right to be heard by people who want to hear you. And until then, you owe no explanation to those who made a choice not to understand you. Freedom comes when you stop chasing clarity in broken places. When you stop hoping a toxic person will suddenly become honest, empathetic, or accountable. When you stop watering dead things just because they once looked like love. You can't change people who are committed to misunderstanding you, but you can change how much access they have to your spirit. You can choose to speak less, protect more, and walk forward with the dignity that silence often carries. Reclaiming your identity outside of their control is not just a decision, it's a declaration that you are no longer willing to be molded by manipulation or defined by someone else's broken perception of you. When you've been entangled with a narcissist, your sense of self slowly erodes. You start by compromising a little, explaining a little more, sacrificing small parts of who you are to keep the peace. But over time, that peace becomes a prison. Your voice softens, your confidence fades, and you look in the mirror and barely recognize the reflection staring back. It's not that you've disappeared. It's that you've been buried under someone else's expectations, projections, and control. Narcissists are experts at identity theft, not the kind that steals your bank account, but the kind that steals your sense of self. They rewrite your reality, minimize your dreams, and criticize your uniqueness until you begin to question your own worth. You stop doing the things you love. You hesitate before you speak. You ask for permission to be who you were born to be. And in that hesitation, in that shrinking, you hand over your power piece by piece. But your identity is not theirs to define, and your worth is not based on how well you fit into their fragile ego. Reclaiming yourself means remembering who you were before the gaslighting, before the guilt, before the constant emotional tug of war. It means going back to the core of who you are, not who they said you were, but who you know yourself to be deep within. That version of you, the bold, the free, the joyful, the curious, the creative, that version still exists. She might be hidden beneath wounds and awareness, But she is not gone. She is waiting for you to come back home to her. It's not an overnight process. Narcissistic control runs deep, often wrapped in words that sound like love, but feel like fear. They say they're protecting you when they're really controlling you. They say they're helping you grow when they're really shrinking you. So when you begin to pull away, when you start to reclaim your time, your mind, your space, they won't make it easy. They'll try to guilt you, shame you, remind you of your flaws, or accuse you of being the problem. But that's when you know you're on the right path, because people who benefit from your silence will always be threatened by your awakening. Reclaiming your identity means rediscovering your voice. It means allowing yourself to speak, to feel, to want, without editing your truth for someone else's comfort. It means showing up fully in rooms where you used to hide parts of yourself. It means setting boundaries not out of bitterness, but out of deep self-respect. It means healing not to win them back, but to never lose yourself again. This journey is not about proving anything to them. It's about proving to yourself that you are whole without their approval. As you reclaim yourself, expect discomfort. Freedom often feels strange when you've lived under control. You might feel guilty for being happy. You might second guess your joy. But healing will teach you that you're allowed to love your life, even if they don't understand it. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to rise. You're allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that tolerated what you now recognize as emotional imprisonment. And with every step you take toward yourself, you begin to see clearer. You realize that your identity is not fragile, not broken. It was just buried. And now, you are digging through the debris of their control to uncover the truth. You are not who they said you were. You are more. You are enough. You are free.